Шановні друзі,
dear friends, the countdown had started, so let us have this round. Let's start this round table devoted to the energy strategy of Ukraine. We have Yurii Ivanovich Samoilenko, head of the All-Ukrainian Ecological Association Greenwald, Serhiy Kurykin, deputy head of the Green Party of Ukraine, Serhiy Didkovskyi, executive director of Golova Agency, Galina Linikova from Mama 86, All-Ukrainian Environmental NGO. So, dear participants, if you wish to participate in our discussion, feel free to express your opinions. These times these days we witness the discussion and approval of the energy strategy of Ukraine. Rather, quite soon we saw the passage of the energy development for Ukraine up to 2026, and unfortunately we witnessed rather obsolete approach when against the electric cars, perspective of the electric cars. We witness that the state wishes to start from the very old project. So by 2026 we will start, by the year 2020 we will start construction, and by 2026 we will have the very awkward, very obsolete concept. Prime Minister Grossman keeps an eye on the state-of-the-art technologies everywhere in the world and invite them to the to Ukraine. And today we decided to clarify the future of energy supply in Ukraine. With this, I would like to give the to Mr. Kurykin, who is an expert in this topic. We have 1 hour for discussion. I would ask you to speak briefly and concisely and up to the topic. Good afternoon, dear friends. I would like to explain why what Vitalii Mykolaievich mentioned, why it is bad. When on July 13th, the Cabinet of Ministers had passed the Hydro Energy Development Plan up to 2026. All the independent experts, environmental community, and all other stakeholders immediately disliked it. The first opinion was expressed by Mama 86 NGO, who will take the floor later. Why this was done? The aforementioned program provides for the construction of the cascade of hydropower plants, HPPs, on the Dnipro River. I would like to mention that never nowhere in the world HPPs were constructed on the rivers in the plains. In the United States, they realized how harmful it was for the nature rather early and dismantled several dozens of such HPPs. Those who know the Dnipro River, you know that the Dnipro River is not existent anymore because this is a cascade of actually lakes, dead lakes, which are very shallow, where there is a lot of organic residuals, where fish cannot survive, and 70% of Ukrainian population drink from the Dnipro, drink water from the Dnipro River. Also, construction of HPPs is always closely related to the local floods in the neighboring lands. And if you take into account the adverse effect of these floods, we also combined with the very poor environmental situation in the artificial lakes, we may clearly understand that the hydropower plants are among the main pollutants among all the renewables. When we look at solar energy, the resources almost inexhaustive, while the hydropower resources could be overstretched and exhausted very easily. So in the Dnipro River, we will see extension of the Kakhovka hydropower plant and Kanev hydropower plant, etc. Also, the building up of the second turn of second hydropower plant in the Dnipro River, and borrow money for extension of this hydropower plant. So there's then that program which I mentioned plans to turn the Dniester River into a cascade of hydropower plants. So two the biggest rivers of Ukraine will be totally destroyed. This is in the times when the entire world is trying to apply solar energy as much as possible. China had become a champion in the world in developing solar energy, having invested $103 billion into it. Solar energy remains the top priority for many countries. It is the cheapest one, and by 2025, the solar energy, keeping in mind the cheapening of equipment and technologies in this sector, will become the most strong in the world. While we now try to ignore this progressive way of energy generation and try to stack back to the energy sources from the Soviet past. Moreover, this year we saw another important document which has been being existent at the level of draft paper. This is energy strategy for Ukraine up to the year 2036. It totally comprises that weak plan with the hydropower development, which I mentioned. At the same time, it is a total failure and mistaken. It believes that production of shale gas and shale oil will be beneficial. Then this draft strategy is prioritizing the nuclear energy production, which forced me to think what are the top priorities for our servicemen. So developers of this program believe that since Germany is trying to turn into green energy state, then after 2030 they will become a good target for sales or good marketplace for sales of energy. Thus, we will produce nuclear energy and sell electric energy from nuclear power to Germany. But at the same time, nobody keeps in mind the huge harm and burden imposed by NPPs. And the last statement, which I would like to express today, in the leadership of our state, we have well-educated young people with good awareness about global trends, global energy trends, and the major aspects of globalization, and specifically in energy strategy. And despite all that, that young people in practice take the approach which is worse than the approach of the captains of economy from the Soviet past. Everybody understood that we should speak slowly. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yurii Samoilenko, the then Member of Parliament, the then leader of the Parliamentary Committee on the Environment, while today he represents the Green World NGO. Thank you very much. Dear friends, in a moment I will quote some lines from the Central Archive of Ukraine. For 2 years, under leadership of the Green World leadership, people protest against extension of the cascade of hydropower plants on the Bug River. They insist on the environmental survey of the project and insist that their consideration should be taken into account, while nothing is being done, and this influences the general societal climate in Ukraine. This is quotation from the year 1990. This was 27 years ago. And the world has changed immensely from that date, while our bureaucrats, our civil servants, top civil servants, they do not change. We had seen in the past, we know that in the past there was the Institute of Hydro Technologies, And during that period of time, that institute has changed its name into the Institute of Water Problems. So the name states that there is a problem with the water. In order to resolve this problems of water, we look at Europe and try to analyze what is demanded from us by the European documents. Do we have any strategy as to the water? We do not have any water strategy for Ukraine. You may say that many countries lack such strategies. No, that's not true. Russia, Belarus, they have water strategies. Even Moldova has its water strategy, while Ukraine lack the water strategy. Why? Because in our agencies we have not just well-educated people, but people who are merchants by their nature, and they wish to trade with the natural resources and the health of people. I would like to provide another example. Quite recently, our National Institute of Strategic Studies had published an information that around the globe, 2.5 billion euros had been spent in the world for minimization of natural disasters consequences. That is what we predicted back in 1990, that our consuming approach to the environment would result in disasters, especially we would suffer from water disasters. 2.3 trillions humanity had lost because of damages damage caused by natural disasters, especially water disasters. Also, I would like to state that we should learn lessons from the past and look forward. Analyzing activities of our government and of our parliament, we come back to 1998 to 02, when Serhiy Kurykin was in the government and the Green Party was in the parliament. At that time, we allocated money for forestries, for revival of forestries, for building dams to prevent floods. But after 2008, Ukraine immediately became a victim of floods, massive floods in Transcarpathia, and we suffered $1 billion loss. Did this force us to think what to do with the Dnistro River, with the Dnipro River? Did we learn that lesson? No, we decided to build up new HPPs, resulting in new marshes, threatening big cities. We have to resolve the problem with the state-of-the-art ways. Our association having witnessed how our Prime Minister tried to communicate with Elon Musk, we have drafted our own letter to Elon Musk, taking into account the specificities of energy generation in Ukraine and the experience of Tesla company in energy uh, um, storages, we would like to invite you to build up energy storages in Ukraine as an alternative for building up hydro accumulation facilities on the hydro resources, the rivers of Ukraine. I think this would be a good response to construction of the hydro power plants. This will be billions of digged money. We are willing to turn our rivers into marshes. The Dnistro river starts in Ukraine and then having crossed Moldova, comes to Ukraine very much polluted with the industrial pollutants. While Moldova wishes to take more and more water from the Dnistro river because they have the Moldova has its water strategy. We do not have. Let us come back to this hydro accumulation plants. We come back to the necessity to preserve hydro resources of the country. This is not just the health of people. This is about the health of the environmental systems. The environmental systems means clean, potable water for our people. We take tests of water from the Dnipro and Dnistro rivers, and we find out that the main flow of the river is much cleaner than the tributes for example, in Zhytomyr Oblast, the Korostyn River is much more polluted than the Dnipro River. Thus, tributes are more polluted than the main river. Recently, we calculate 25 years ago, we counted the rivers of Ukraine, while today there is 10 rivers less, which are destroyed by pumping stations, by floods, by by artificial lakes because of hydropower plants. Thus, we sank cemeteries, sank many dirty places, and the potable water became polluted. So we came here to say once again to our bureaucrats, dear Minister of Energy, dear Ministry of Energy, pay attention to the environmental resources. Back in the past, they would not dare to raise the question in this aspect. I started with the reference to 1990. Back in 1990s, we indicated the right path of development for land resources, for water resources, for energy resources, and coordinated them with the European directives. And we insist that current government should pay attention on this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yurii. Galia, would you like to speak? Now I'd like to give the floor to Mama 86 Environmental NGO.
Good afternoon. Our organization deals with the issues of quality of potable water and the problem of Dnipro River, and these water reservoirs, they ruin potable water in Ukraine. Hydro energy is a different and broader issue, and we have a lot of problems. And with the strategy in times when Ukraine doesn't have energy balance, we do not know what we produce and what we consume and what goes for sale. We do not have the strategy of the development of the state. We do not know what industry we will need in 5-10 years, and what energy we need for ourselves and for sale. We should have a balance, and we should understand where we spend money earned from energy sector. Concerning the strategy, energy strategy. During the last 10 years, the strategy changed 3 times. As you remember, there was strategy of 2006. It was not directed at the development of, was directed to nuclear energy. 23 reactors were planned. Then we turned back to renewable energy sources and the development of shale gas. Then we rejected the idea. And in the strategy, now we speak about coal. And all around the world, they reject the idea of using coal. And during last year, we had that strategy about hydro energy. The main issue that we raise as an organization that Ukraine has its obligations and association, and we should have adopted 2 important laws on ecology assessment and environmental impact, but we do not have these laws at the moment. And the president blocked the adoption of this legislation, and new hydro or accumulation stations, these are the matters of ecology assessment. So this decision should be properly considered by the government, and our organization, we addressed the issues of filtration facilities, and also we corrected the strategy that was proposed for the public, but unfortunately they do not hear us, and we should increase our efforts and in Ukraine there is administrative reform that is ongoing, and those lands that will be flooded, they are the lands of territorial communities, and according to constitution, land belongs to people and people should decide. Our task is to lobby the adoption of law that will preserve our environment for our future generations. Thank you, Galina. I give the floor to Serhiy Didkovskyi. Good afternoon. I would like to speak about the prestige of the state and the position of our state in the world market and on the world arena in the context of energy sector. And we have two Ukraine, literally speaking. One, Ukraine generates one of the best programmers in the world, Ukrainian programmers who work for Microsoft, Google, Barclays Bank, BMW. They have leading positions in the world ratings. And Ukrainian white hackers this year, they took first place in their category in protection of information. Ukraine generates a lot of startups, and they are known around the world. Your company practically developed the technology of Google glasses that allow to make photos. This is the design of Kiev Institute of Cybernetics, and a lot of startups on ecology, on green issues, ecoism startup, the startups that generate green incubator. Also, NASA provides grants to Ukraine. If you have an idea, it can be implemented. For example, the research of space, there are special grants provided by NASA. They select the best minds, and in Ukraine, there are a lot of photographers and designers who work in the United States and in Great Britain. So this Ukraine, this first Ukraine, this is global Ukraine that participate in old world high-tech processes. This is clever, intelligent, young, and important Ukraine. They are important in the world global post-industrial processes. And there is a second Ukraine that believes that 2017 they can live in realia of 1950s or 1960s. They believe that we should build one more hydro station. We should continue to cut forests, to question whether we need coal. And in 2015 or 2016, if I'm not mistaken, UNO reached conclusion that coal is not good, and organizations such as UNO and other organizations who research energy at the world level, they say that hydro energy is bad, but for some reason the second Ukraine continued to be the state of red directors, the state that is raw material supplier that does not solve but create problems. Just face the same problems once and once again. So this is the matter of prestige of our state and how we are viewed at in the world. So with our programmers, with our developers, startups, and with our best minds, we have our first intelligent Ukraine, and the world speaks with this Ukraine, and no one wants to communicate with the second Ukraine. and they see us as a source of problem. We generate the problems, we cannot resolve them, and then we address the world for money. And this is my personal conviction. 2017, we cannot think now about hydro station building. This is like thinking about creating one more waste dump, or to develop coal industry instead of developing renewable energy. So this is shameful to think in such terms. That's why, in this opposition of these two Ukraines, so this first Ukraine that is really close to Musk, and Mr. Musk is ready to work with us. He's ready to work with Ukraine, and I hope that this is the first Ukraine, Ukraine of Musk, the Ukraine of intelligent people, and we hope that it will win over the second Ukraine that is a raw material supplier, and those always crying people who continue, create problems, and fight with them again and again. I would like to add, I don't want that Greens, I don't want to say that Greens are against all this. We would like to say that we see the future in IT technologies, in our people, in our startups, in our new energy efforts that can change the situation. And it's our task to show to people that we have all this. And we asked 22 deputies here today from the Supreme Council who call themselves Green Energy of Change. And you want them as deputies to address the government and to break the scheme that raise a lot of questions I cannot find answers to. Why should we spend this 13.5 billion for hydro energy station? We know how roads are built, how electric stations are built here. They just want to steal money. This is not a rhetoric question. This is reality of the day. They just put in these options for themselves. We are a political party, and there is political component, and we address politicians. If, for example, tomorrow Lukashenko would say that he will build at the at the tributary of the river some stations, or Russia or others would like to build such stations. You should understand there is climate change, and rivers become shallow, and Pivdенny Bug between Dnipro and Dniester, it gets dry. And I know that some people want to construct private electric stations there, and people just against this. Why government doesn't see this? Maybe they just don't want to see it. This is a political problem. And I have a question. Maybe this is not only precondition to illegal activities. Maybe this is some sort of treason. Because the president of Moldova, he says to his people that Ukrainians wants to deprive his people from of water. And you are politicians. You called yourself clever people. You should remember that there should be not only thinking about your own money. You should think how people see you. And young generation do not want to live like this. Young generation wants to do business in other way. And I would like to give the floor to the person who introduces new methods in Ukraine. Ghosh, Ukrainian Association of Automobiles. So they say that a person is the measure of all things. When you read the strategy you told us about, I reviewed the strategy and I didn't find a man there. You can find colossal plans, but I couldn't see a man there, how a man can build his future on it. And Vitalii Nikolaevich and I support his ideas that our officials do not clearly understand what state means. A state should create employment to provide opportunities to realize potential of people, not just to create some traps people cannot get out of and to destroy environment. So I represent an organization that has an aim to show that something can be done, and we should do something. We should form public opinion that would disagree with the programs that are thoughtlessly provided. We should oppose this, and we should show that there is a way out of the situation. The whole world is going on the way of unification of energy market and create opportunities for people to have a choice where to get energy and in what way to build the future, to create the systems that can be set locally, not using much of resources. And coal and oil, this is not evil, that can be used differently. 150 years ago, Dmitry Ivanovich Medvedev said that to stoke with oil is costlier than to stoke with bonds. So we create a lot of products with oil, from bottles to clothes, and we should create systems to provide people with a choice at workplace and in the household. I represent an association that show that you can get rid of those old models that do not provide for the development. And we for several years we propose electric automobiles, but this is a separate topic. Electromobile can be an accumulator, and by creating small systems, accumulating systems based on solar energy or wind energy, we can use it freely and accumulate the energy at local level, or even to start a small business on this. I do not know Elon Musk personally, but we have this in our country, and we have proponents of these ideas. And last week we had a meeting at the Ministry of Infrastructure, and they voiced the figures. Ukraine is at 5th place concerning introduction of electromobiles in the world. So it's not so impressive like in Norway, but the fact that people see prospects on this, they see right approach, they see the patriotic views, so they reject energy sources that we buy from aggressive state. There is a trend. Society is formed, new views are formed, and those technological and technical innovations that can be used in households and in enterprises. So we have it here in Ukraine. We have what to pay attention to, what to speak about. Who wants to take the floor, please? This is called Roundtable. It is really interesting. The cause is that the monopoly on decisions is in the hands of one person. And no matter what we do, these people in the ministries, they are not independent. It's not in our capacity to decide who these people are, but I think that maybe we should create an agency, new institution that will be called Renewable Green Energy, that will oppose this red plague ideology. And people promote what they can do. They can build electric stations, they can build heating stations, but no one taught them. They do not want to change their place of employment. That's why they are easily bought by oligarchs. And we have an association, we have IT specialists, we have Green World, Green Movement, and I believe this is a great alternative. If this agency would oppose, like the future opposes the past. I would like to add, we have such an agency. We have an institution that is called State Energy Efficiency Agency, and they have this responsibility, but despite their declarations concerning energy saving and introduction of renewable sources of energy, sources of energy, they are the part of the state mechanism that force us to exist between these opposing trends, the first and the second Ukraine. The first and the last Ukraine. Ukraine with prospects and Ukraine without. And speaking about the documents, this is not the format to analyze 100 pages, I mean the project of energy strategy, but I would like to cite this document. There they mention that renewable sources of energy, this is a good thing, but it is envisaged there, and I cite moderate stimulation. So we focus on nuclear energy, we build hydro stations with all the consequences, and we continue to use traditional sources of energy such as oil and gas. And the same program provides good prospects for shale prospecting and shale gas prospecting, and despite the world trend, this program only provides moderate development. So they just mention but they do not develop it really. So, someone should produce energy, and the hydro energy is not limited by rivers. There are technologies of wave stations, simple devices, not costly, that are at the coastline, different design. They are connected and they are set in certain locality. And if we create small units based on hydro resources and solar resources, it should be decentralized. If we look at the future of electromobiles, this is not only the vehicle itself, but also the stations. Where can they get the energy? So should we draw the electric lines from one station to the other? Maybe there should be local solar stations, independent from conditions, and it will be good for environment and economy. But those who had our country, they do not want to think about it. They are intelligent people. They are educated. If these were not educated Stone Age people, this would be one thing. But the paradox is that in power there are progressive, intelligent, educated people who unfortunately have negative sets in mind about the development.
I would like to say that the Minister of Infrastructure of Milan once said that if I make such radical decisions, I will end as President Kennedy. Maybe they are not independent in making decisions. Maybe this is mafia threatening their lives. Dear friends, I would like to come back to the discussion which we started. Why this mafia continues to exist in Ukraine? The answer is very simple. The environment means the economy. Why? Because the economy of Ukraine is based on environmental resources. More than 60% of our national product is based on the raw material base. What is the rent which we pay for oil, gas? Almost nothing, oil almost nothing, and water almost nothing. So the oligarchic structures badly use water resources. They get benefits. Unfortunately, all those educated guys trained on the Akhmetov's account abroad, they continue to implement very obsolete, awkward schemes here in Ukraine. Currently, we use so-called southern model in Ukraine. We should come back to the so-called northern model and to force oligarchs to pay for natural resources. And when they will need to pay for natural resources, then they will be forced to use all the new technologies and technical progress. achievements. We are eventually approaching to the end. We have found out that monopoly on energy sector remains in the private hands, and private hands do not wish to release it. I think we need the green revolution. I agree with Yurii Ivanovich that we have to pay, that everything should be paid, and the polluter is to pay. Principle should be invested, should be applied. At the same time, you should keep in mind that resources are exhaustible, and if you pay money for destroyed forests, how it will help you in the future. So we have to apply the most smart approach to natural resources. I also agree with with the statement that energy sector belongs to the private sector. We have a lot of monopolies here. Unfortunately, many monopolies were owned by private owners. But the most shocking is position of the state. The state has to think in the large-scale categories and keep in mind interests of society. The topic which we raised today, it's not a discovery. These are not classified information, but this is an information ignored by those who are decision makers, and lack of political will should be turned into the presence of political will to introduce changes. Dear friends, thank you very much. We finalize our work. We have revealed that we have two Ukraines, and in both parts we have young people, but one of them are working for their owners, and another people are free and working for themselves.